What we've done in the last 2 or 3 slides is something very simple. We're comparing the total return for an investor in a risk-free um, investment opportunity. One is to invest in a government bond in the United States with maturity 3 months. This is gonna pay an interest rate I dollar IS if you want. The alternative would be to invest in Japanese government bonds with the same maturity. Why am I picking this uh, government bond? Because also the risk associated with this bond is basically identical to the risk associated with a US government bond. So by non-arbitrage, the total return between these two alternative investment strategies should be the same. However, while the investment in government bonds in the United States doesn't have any risk of fluctuation of the exchange rate, when I invest in Japanese government bonds, I have to pay with yen, with Japanese currency. So I am exposed to fluctuations of the exchange rate between the dollar and the yen. So what's the total return from investing in yen bonds? Well, first of all, I have to convert $1, the amount of my investment, into yen, and I'm going to use the spot interest rate, which in this case we'll call E. On that amount of yen that I obtain, with that amount, I can invest in Japanese government bonds and get an overall interest I yen. Then once at the maturity, this interest is ready for me to be cashed, I need to reconvert this amount that is in yen into dollars. In order to do that, I will use a forward rate that I will fix at the very first day in which I start this investment strategy. Now I can exploit the fact that the payoffs, the total return from these two different strategies have to be the same by non-arbitrage, because if we think about it, if one of the two was yielding a higher return, then since the risk associated with them is the same, all the investor would pick the opportunity that gives a higher return, pushing up the demand for this investment strategy, and so its price, and so drawing down the overall return. So in equilibrium of the market, this difference in total return between these two strategies cannot exist, and so for this reason these two quantities have to be equal. But then with some simple algebraic passages we can solve for the forward rate as a function of the spot rate, E, in slide 30, and then of the domestic interest rate and of the interest rate in the foreign market, which is in this case the interest rate in Japan. We see that the forward rate depends positively on the spot exchange rate, and also it depends positively on the interest rate on US government bonds, meaning that if this is higher, then also the forward rate is higher. It depends negatively on the interest rate on Japanese bonds, meaning that as the interest rate on Japanese bonds grows, the forward rate falls. In the next slides, we'll see a concrete numerical example of an application of this covered interest parity formula.